Now, another roundup of all things economic from Will Edwards of our business desk. Good morning again, Will.
Hi, Claire.
And day one of the EU budget summit negotiations. Where do things stand as we enter into day two?
Well, there have been a few changes in day one. There was a new budget proposal from Herman Van Rompuy of the European Council. He has kept the headline figure the same. 972 billion euros is the amount of money expected to be used over the next 7 years. That will disappoint heads of state such as David Cameron, who's been pushing for cuts. However, it's what's inside that's changed, the makeup of that budget. And in that, there are winners and losers. Let's take a look at the winners first. Agricultural subsidies, the French will be very pleased to hear, have got an €8 billion boost, as have cohesion funds. They're up by around 11 billion in this new proposal, at least. That's what keeps smaller nations happy. It keeps supporting them, those who are not net contributors to the EU budget. So who's going to actually pay for this? Where's the money coming from? Well, the losers, you could call it, I suppose, are various different projects. One of them is called Connected Europe. That's money for putting infrastructure in place between states, such as gas pipelines, broadband. Small and medium businesses, their support is going to be cut, research money and foreign aid. And disappointingly for many, I suppose, is the fact that this is the money which was supposed to promote growth. This is where the growth was supposed to come from in this EU budget. Instead, that money is now being siphoned off into other areas. That's the proposal. Whether they can agree on this, of course, remains to be seen.
OK, and there's another key sticking point, isn't there? And it also involves the UK.
That's right. Yes, this is the issue of rebates. The UK gets one every year worth around 3.6 billion euros last time. It gets it back from what it pays to the EU, but it's becoming quite a bone of contention. Let's take a look.
He was among the first to arrive in Brussels, and British Prime Minister David Cameron set the tone for what is expected to be a bitter fight over the EU's next budget.
We're going to be negotiating very hard for a good deal for Britain's taxpayers and for Europe's taxpayers, and to keep the British rebate.
Keeping the rebate as a red line for the UK government. First negotiated by Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, the cashback is meant to reflect the fact that the UK receives less subsidies for its small agricultural sector than other countries. Last year, the rebate amounted to 3.6 billion euros, but a draft budget proposed by EU President Herman Van Rompuy could see it reduced by some 25%, costing Britain around 1 billion euros a year. Cameron has vowed he won't back down. The issue is not just financial, but political.
David Cameron is in a very tough situation in the sense that there are many members of his party, but also many voters that are not willing to compromise on this occasion as they were in the past, especially because voters in the UK are feeling the pinch of domestic cuts.
Britain's rebate is essentially paid for by other EU countries, which share the cost proportionally. However, due to rebates on the rebate enjoyed by Germany, Austria, the Netherlands and Sweden, France and Italy have been left to pick up the biggest share of the tab. French President François Hollande has slammed countries seeking rebates, saying it goes against the idea of a unified Europe. With the UK looking like it won't back down on the issue and other countries up in arms, the debate over rebate looks set to be a fiery one.
So how is all of this affecting the markets, Will?
Well, the European markets will see how they react later today. But of course, yesterday the US markets were closed. It's the Asian markets that are open today, of course not affected by Thanksgiving holidays. The Nikkei, I have to say, is closed. But the Hang Seng, the Shanghai Composite and the Kospi are all in positive territory at the moment, relatively light trading due to that US holiday, but encouraged by those figures out from China yesterday on the resurgence of its manufacturing sector.
And of course, the markets will be keeping a close eye on consumer sentiment in the US as they shop till they drop post-Thanksgiving.
That's right, Black Friday. It's really seen as the start of the Christmas shopping season. Lots of discounts on offer from US stores across the country. You can see some people are keener than others, camping out for days in advance to try and get the best deals. It's really seen as a bellwether for how the US economy is going to go over the Christmas period. It's called Black Friday because that's when businesses traditionally get into the black for the financial year as a whole, and from now on it's pure profit is the idea anyway. It might not be the case quite so much this year because, of course, Hurricane Sandy has had quite an effect. People are going to be less interested in spending money on discretionary items than on essentials in areas affected by the hurricane.
OK, next let's have a look at a financial scandal at one of France's best-known universities.
Yes, Sciences Po is, it's officially known as the Paris Institute of Political Sciences, but everyone calls it Sciences Po. And back in April, its director, Richard Decoing, he died of heart failure in New York, obviously to great surprise. Now, since then, the auditors have been looking through the finances and they've not liked what they've seen. A report was being published and they've said there are anomalies such as the amount paid to academics in relation to how many hours they've done, misuse of credit cards, toxic loans related to real estate, a number of issues. It says the director's salary of over 500,000 euros is not transparent, it's not clear and it's too high. The Minister of Higher Education has now had to step in and she is going to appoint an interim head while all this is looked into.
Okay, interesting stuff there. And next, elections take place in Sunday in the Spanish region of Catalonia. It could put the region on the path to independence. One reason for the possible split is the economy, with Catalonia accounting for 20% of Spanish GDP. Some here feel they're not getting a good deal from the federal government.
We're driving down a motorway in Catalonia with Robert. He's a campaigner for independence for this region and he's chosen a rather unusual method. He's stopped paying road tolls, which he considers unjust taxes from Madrid.
Hello, I don't want to pay.
The toll booth worker takes out a notepad while Robert posts his civil disobedience, as he puts it, on Twitter.
The lady makes a note of my registration plate, then she lets me go. You see, we end up knowing each other. Thank you very much.
Robert accuses Madrid of stealing from the Catalans through the central tax system.
There's a massive tax discrimination between Catalonia and Spain. 80% of the motorways and fast roads with tolls in Spain are here in Catalonia.
As Spain's crisis continues to bite, arguments like these are gaining momentum. Artur Mas, the favourite to win the region's election, has promised a referendum on independence. He says Catalonia loses 16 billion euros to the rest of Spain through taxes.
We would be the seventh country in the European Union. We have a sufficiently strong economy to try to have our own state and to be able to manage a little bit better.
Not everyone agrees. If Catalonia breaks with Spain, it would also have to leave the EU, says this economist.
We would have to pay customs duties and leave the euro. We would lose the protection of the European Central Bank and the results would be disastrous.
Catalonia is a wealthy region. With 200 billion euros in GDP, it represents a fifth of Spain's revenue.
And finally, a nice surprise for the British beef industry.
Yes, this is the fact that Russia has finally lifted its ban on British beef and lamb, actually, which has been in place since 1996. Now, of course, back then, the UK was the epicenter of the mad cow disease epidemic. And quite rightly, I'm sure no one would have argued with the fact that exports were banned. However, over the years, obviously, things improved and the situation was brought thoroughly under control. The EU lifted the ban in 1999. Now, that's a long time ago. France was in hot water with its UK colleagues for keeping a ban in place till 2002. Russia has only just, in the last 24 hours or so, said it's going to remove the ban after 16 years. So good news for UK farmers.
Will Edwards from our business desk, thanks for that roundup. And Lorna is back after the break with more of today's international headlines. Do stay tuned to France 24.